Okay, let's get started. So thank you very much for joining. We're really excited about this session. It's going to be wonderful content for you. We're going to be able to talk about a very effective, very powerful new solution that FlexPay is offering and making available to its customers called Engaged Recovery. That'll have a very dramatic impact on your failed payment recovery and your results in reducing involuntary churn. Part of what makes today's session so exciting is we have a wonderful speaker panel join us. Jake and Nick. I'm going to let Jake introduce himself, and then we'll go the same with Nick. Jake.
Yeah, so I just noticed that president of Alder. I was the president of Alder. Now I'm president of our software company, but regardless, more or less same business. But yeah, been in this industry for a long time. We do residential and commercial home security. So we deal with a lot of, reoccurring payments. FlexPay has been an awesome partner. They wanted me to talk a little bit about Engage Recovery, but we'll get to that when the time comes.
Thanks, Jake. And we're joined by Nick DeGize, our VP of Client Success. Nick, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Nick, as Steve mentioned, VP of Client Success here at FlexPay. I've been with FlexPay for about 8.5 years now. And I've worked with, I'm sure, most of you that are going to be joining the webinar today in some way or another through either myself or my team.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm Steve Aronsoff. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing at FlexPay. Okay, so for today, we're going to go through an introduction to Engage Recovery and explain why it's really unique and different and why it is so effective. And we'll have a chance for Jake to take us through the results that Alder is seeing and how much impact it's really had in their business, which is pretty phenomenal. So let's get started. So everybody on the call is already working with FlexPay's Invisible Recovery solution. As you know, Invisible Recovery is an AI-powered platform that works directly with the payment system to recover customers that have experienced a failed payment. And every company's results are different, but Invisible Recovery work by itself can recover up to 70% of failed payments in the customers that are previously being lost to involuntary churn. Engage Recovery is a new solution we recently launched that is able to work with transactions that Invisible Recovery is not successful with for different failed payment types, and even the transactions that Invisible Recovery simply is not successful with, which is always going to be some of. And it is a really unique solution that applies behavioral science to create engagement experiences with customers, reaching out to them through SMS and email channels, deliver positive brain experiences working to recover the failed payment to help engage with the customer to resolve the problem. And as we'll see, in fact, we're able to recover with Engage Recovery up to 30% additional customers. And I really want to explain why Engage Recovery is not just an outreach program. It's not simply sending emails or text messages. It has been designed by behavioral scientists, and it works in a way to try to find a theme that'll be effective with each individual customer. And what we mean by that is it applies different messages in sequence, working to find the one. It uses education to inform the customer about the problem that occurred. It will apply empathy to align that this is not a problem that the customer created. It's not their fault, and we just want to partner with them to solve it, and so that their subscription can continue as they expect. It gives them the opportunity to solve the problem themselves through self-agency. And as time goes by, it works to create a sense of urgency. And there's something called the realization effect, when people that are comfortable and happy when they can put issues aside and feel a sense of accomplishment by completing that hurdle. And of course, risk aversion, where we're trying to communicate that they can remove the risk of potentially losing their subscription. And in the case of Alder Holdings, actually the risk of having an unprotected home, which is incredibly vital for, I think, most households. So you can see it's a very different approach to how to connect with your customers, to be able to educate them on the problem that occurred, but do so in a way that really works to create a collaboration, a sense of partnership with the customer to solve the problem and allow them to get access to the products and services that you deliver in a way that avoids interruptions of the service delivery. So that's essentially how engagement recovery works. And now we start talking about what it actually is like to get started. So Nick, can you take us quickly through what a FlexPay customer should expect in terms of what's required for them to get started from a technical side and from processes?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Steve. So at a very high level, there's two primary components that we need when we're going to be enabling engaged recovery for a merchant that's currently working with FlexPay. The first component is obviously some technical changes around the API that you're using to connect to FlexPay. This is a very light lift. Generally, it's going to be a few additional fields to the API that you're already using. You'll need to send, majority of the customers are already sending all of the data we need with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 points. And they're already handling everything that we'll need to send back with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 statuses. So from a technical perspective, the lift is very light. The second piece that's going to be required is really about the branding and approving of the messages. This is where more of the work will come in. This is where we're going to need to do a little bit more back and forth. My team is going to work very closely with anyone who's coming on board to really guide them through this process. We're going to be providing templates. We're going to be providing suggested communications that are going to be leveraged throughout the engaged recovery process. These communications, as you're mentioning, Steve, really are going to be leveraging the behavioral science approach, the messaging, the tone, and the feel that the behavioral scientists have determined are going to drive the interactions that we're looking for. All of this being said, all of these messages are going to be approved by anyone who's working with FlexPay. We understand that there are going to be any potential legal and communication styles that every individual merchant is going to look for. So my team is going to work very closely with you to get those styles incorporated. The look, the feel, the branding, everything will be based on the merchant themselves. So in the example of Jake and his team, everything is branded Alder. Everything has been approved by Alder, and all of the actions are driven to Alder. So we need to just make sure that we're closing that loop with anyone that we're onboarding. That's the general, in a nutshell, the enablement process. Realistically, the technical lift should be very quick, less than a sprint or 1 sprint to just get the additional API fields. And then the legal and process review really depends on the merchant's legal and process review period internally, but we'll be there to work with them throughout the process. And as quickly as they're able to get copy approved and messaging and look and feel approved, we'll be able to get this up and running.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Nick. So we talked about what it is. We've talked a little bit about what it takes to get live. Now let's shift and hear from Alder what impact it's had on their business and how effective engagement recovery can be. So Jake, thank you again for joining us. It's a really it's a great story you have to share. I'd love to hear from you, kind of how you got started working with FlexPay and how you got down the path for engagement recovery.
Yeah. So when they first asked me to, share some best practices, I said, I can tell you everything to do wrong because we've done pretty much everything wrong. Just to give you some high level background, we're one of the largest privately owned home security companies in the nation. And we've kind of built our plane while we're flying it. Everyone uses the buzzword vertically integrated. We think we are. We make all our own equipment. We own our own distribution center. We have our own home built CRM that does all our billing and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, about 11 years ago, got started, and I've kind of worn every hat. I've run our operations. I was our chief revenue officer for a while. So I got involved with the billing when I noticed the high percentage of declines that we were having with our credit cards. And our business kind of has shifted more from where most of our payments were ACH driven to now where more of them are credit card driven. And that goes into kind of how we are creating our accounts. We're doing a lot more e-commerce now, a lot more over the phone sales rather than in person. So we had to learn about PCI compliance. We had to learn about card validation. Literally everything. So FlexPay was was awesome from a partner standpoint because they could, for one, help us recover declines, but they also gave us a lot of really good information on how to do things the right way.
Excellent. And what about 5 months ago, we launched Engage Recovery together, and I understand it was a fairly easy process to get live, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, and we were joking this morning because, you know, when I can't remember if it was Shane or you, Steve, I don't remember. They said, hey, we want to, you know, offer an additional service that we think can have a huge lift to your collections. And, you know, the first thing, of course, is, well, how much is it going to cost? And then how much lift is there going to be? And they said, no, it's included in the service. And just speaking bluntly, usually when we've dealt with so many partners in the past, it's always one of this like over-promise, under-deliver type partnerships, but it's never been that way with FlexPay. So I said, sure, we'll give it a shot. And just I pretty much did most of the integration myself, and I'm not a developer. I know some SQL, but it was very, very light. They crafted the communication. We had to provide them, like Steve mentioned, you know, our official corporate letterhead and some of that stuff, but it wasn't them saying, hey, write what you want your first text message to be or your first email. So they would come to us with here's what we want to send for the first one. Does this work? So they were the ones that it seemed like were actually doing the lifting. We were just giving our stamp of approval or modifying certain things.
Fantastic. I just want to reiterate two things. One is that FlexPay's commitment to innovation means that we're continuously working to improve the effectiveness of all of our solutions and continue to develop new products like Engage Recovery to help. And of course, as Jake mentioned, there's no launch cost for any customer to go live with Engage Recovery. It just gets added on and helps deliver additional performance. And also that the behavioral science behind this, again, when we craft the language and work with our customers to get it approved and to be branded so it's being delivered by each individual brand, it's not random messaging that's being created. It's not somebody just scratching out. It's actually developed by the behavioral scientists, the way to be able to craft a message and experience for the customers that are designed to optimize their satisfaction with the experience and ultimately their behaviors to help us solve the problem. So it's great that what that translates to is actually a fairly light lift on the part of our customers to launch, because a lot of the heavy lifting has already been done with the product itself. Mm-hmm. So let's go to the fun part, Jake. Let's talk about what it's meant for your business.
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to touch on these, Steve?
Absolutely.
So yeah, the numbers speak for themselves. Saw a very significant lift with Engaged Recovery. It makes it a lot easier for the customer to get to our portal and make a payment without having to talk to a sales rep or a customer service agent, which obviously is a better business process for us. Yeah, and this, maybe to give some color to this, that's what kind of brought me into this whole world, is just wondering what the heck, why do half of our credit cards decline? First payment goes through fine, but then almost half decline after on cycle bill. So we changed some of our internal processes, again, going back to we've done everything wrong. We weren't doing any AVS or CVV validation. We were just slapping a card on there. It could have been a Costco card. It could have been a Subway card. We had no validation. So we put some stringent validation in place and some bin logic that we would not allow certain types of cards, like gift cards and prepaid cards, to be used for cycle billing. Then we got FlexPay involved, and which was a huge lift. And one of the things that I've said before was so valuable with FlexPay is the comparison, being able to compare their return response codes with ours and see, okay, can we make tweaks on the front end so it never even goes to FlexPay? But just from a data transparency standpoint, they were instrumental in helping us get to where we are today. And then, yeah, with Engaged Recovery, we've seen even a higher lift, so almost 80% now, which For our industry, that's higher than normal. They say about a 76% in the security world. So we're better than the industry average now.
Yeah, and just amazing impact on involuntary churn, right? Being able to reduce the customer losses that were occurring previously. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and let me real quick on this, Steve. So and I assume most of your businesses operate the same way. When FlexPay is working on a recovery payment, we have a internal collections team. They don't even hit that account. The status changes. They know that it's FlexPay trying to recover on it. So I never even told our operations that we were going to start this new campaign, just more or less because I wanted to see if, customers were complaining and, hey, what's going on with these emails or texts? And we have not heard, I haven't heard a single thing from our collections team. I work with them intimately. And in my world, no news is good news. So that we've seen the collection rate go up without any, additional phone calls or customer frustration. So for us, that's a major win.
That's amazing. And I also want to share something you mentioned earlier, which was that you've been able to see that the labor cost to support customer questions has gone and outreach has gone down as well as a side benefit.
Yeah, and that's mostly because we didn't have a lot of automation. We'd have to have agents open up accounts that the payments declined on and try and run them manually again, and that's inefficient. It costs more time. We hired an entire collections team in the Philippines, and because of this, we've actually been able to scale back a little bit. We don't need as many agents, and the ones that we do have are calling out to customers where we have to actually speak to the customer to get a new card number or stuff that we'd have to talk to the customer to fix the payment. So they're more efficient as well.
Yeah, amazing. Success has gone up and costs have gone down. What more could you want? And I also want to offer up to all of our guests today that are joining on our session that if you have a question for either Nick or Jake, please feel free to use the Q&A box and we'll be able to answer them in real time for you as well. Awesome. So Nick, why don't you talk a little bit and give us some guidance to our customer, what it takes to actually get live. I know that there has been a lot of demand for engaged recovery, but we are absolutely prioritizing our current customers in the queue to get them live first, right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, the setup itself, my team will be working directly with whoever's interested in getting this set up. In reality, so most of you on this call should have heard from my team already, from either myself or my team, about the engaged recovery process. We have now rolled this out. We're very grateful for Jake for having worked with us as a beta client to really work through the initial onboarding process and just getting the initial data for this. And now we're ready to roll this out to everybody who is interested. So if anyone is interested in learning more about engaged recovery, in seeing more about what we can do, we can definitely get into that. Reach out to your client success manager, whoever you're working with on a day-to-day contact. They'll be able to get you connected with myself, with someone from our enablement team, and we can really start talking about exactly what you need to do, how we can go about getting you started, and getting you into the backlog. The team is ready. We are so as soon as someone is interested, we can get them going.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, we actually placed a button on the screen that if you are interested, just go ahead and click that. We'll see that from who is submitted by, and that'll get you at the top of the queue. Awesome.
I also see that someone has asked a question about the ESP and SMS platform integration. So that's a great question. We will work. So when sending any emails or any SMSs, we will be working directly with the merchants to first, from an SMS perspective, we will be obtaining a SMS long code in partnership with whoever we're working with to ensure that any messaging that is coming out of FlexPay or out of the engaged recovery process will be coming out with the merchant specific branding approved for the merchant and by the merchant. Similarly, with an ESP, we do have an ESP that we are sending emails out through, but we will be working with any merchants that we're working with to whitelist this ESP and make sure that we have a full authorization to send emails on your behalf. Everything will be coming branded as your company, both from a sender address and from a look and from a feel perspective, and approved branding and messaging as well. So we can get into a little bit more of the technical details. I don't have all of the details of the ESP ESP itself on hand, but we can definitely go through that and answer any other questions we have throughout the onboarding process.
Yeah, thanks for addressing that, Nick. And Forrest, great question. I think that the importance cannot be overstated about the consistent brand experience for customers and be able to deliver it on behalf of you, which helps credibility and success rates as well, and ensures that the experience is in line with all of your standards that you require for your customer communications.
And one other note, Steve, just as a comment as well, I know this could be a question, and this is a question that has come out in the past. Any payments or any card updates that are occurring through this engaged recovery process are going to be occurring on a merchant-owned website. So similar to the invisible recovery, where FlexPay is processing on behalf of the merchant through their merchant accounts, engaged recovery will be delivering consumers to merchants' web pages or to customers' account pages. So anything that they do will be directly on the merchant side, and FlexPay will not be taking on any control of any funds throughout that process.
Excellent. And Kevin has a question. Kevin asks, and I think this is for you, Nick. If a customer is put into the process and decides to opt out of email communications after they start receiving engaged recovery emails, does that customer opt out of both company email communications or only the engaged recovery communications? I want to ensure we are compliant with email opt-out regulations.
So that is a great question, Kevin. We will be providing any opt-out information back to the merchants that are working with FlexPay. So if a consumer does opt out, that you will be getting that information back. And to be honest, I need to validate exactly what the email opt-out regulations are going to be. This is transactional emails, so there is an implicit opt-in allowed for this, as I understand, because this is transactional, not marketing communication. But I can get Kevin, I can get back to you further on this. But anything we do get and any information we do get will be shared fully and transparently with you as well, so you can be removing those. Jake, you?
Yeah, we dealt with this, and because I know the email laws are slightly different than they are in Canada than they are in the United States. We gain consent to email the customers at the point of sale. So to back to the root of this question, you provided us the information and you let us say, do you want to block just this campaign, or do you want this to apply to all of your emails to this consumer? So you gave us the info and we made our own decision on it.
Which I think is absolutely appropriate, that you maintain control of that, maintain compliance with your opt-out actions, and that makes perfect sense.
And same with TCPA. We've dealt with TCPA litigation in the past, and every text message has opt-out language in there. Reply stop or to end. So that was a big thing, especially with a third party sending out messages to our customers. Compliance was very important.
Awesome. Great feedback. And Nick, I believe this question also is going to be for you, from David. How long does it take for your team to warm email service providers when using domains owned by your partner for your email campaigns? Are there any issues you've seen?
So we have not seen any issues with this. So we are working with, and forgive me, I don't remember exactly the email service provider that we are working with, but I know that these are. There has been no issue in the past of needing to warm these domains or needing to whitelist these domains in any additional way. This has worked and has been fully transparent to the end user, because it is going to be coming from a domain that they are already recognizing and that they're already used to.
Yeah, and the volume of emails going out in aggregate may be significant, but for each individual customer, it's fairly low, and even totality, it's going to be relatively light because it's so dependent upon those customers that are affected.
Perfect. And I have just received a note from the team. It's through SendGrid and Twilio that we are working right now. Both of these are broadly whitelisted and broadly accessible for email and SMS campaigns.
Awesome. Okay, are there any more questions? And we, Nick and Jake and I will stay on for a couple more minutes for any questions that come up.
I would just maybe add one thing. This is something that you can, like I did it because I wanted to know all the parts, but this is something you can easily delegate to have a project manager work with. And if you're working at a high level, this is not something that's so technical that you would need to be involved with it. You could easily have a project manager take this on. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jake. We do have another question from Forrest. I'm seeing. So, did you cover pricing? So, yes, Forrest. We briefly touched on pricing through the conversation. Effectively, because of how FlexPay charges, where we only charge merchants for recovered transactions, and we cover the percentage of the recovered transaction. This effectively just looks identical to what you would have been charged previously. So where previously we would have been charging, we would have been recovering 30% of your customer base. Now with this additional service, we'll be recovering 40% of your customer, the failed payments. And because we're charging only for what is for a percentage of that, it's simply that you're going to be charged the same percentage for any additional recovery. There's no extra fees for emailing. There's no extra fees for the SMS costs. That's all baked into the model that we already have in place. So for you, it just becomes additional recovery that you will be charged the same rate for.
And there's no launch cost.
Correct.
Yeah, and of course, we always, as we remind our customers, the value of a recovered customer includes not just the payment, but also all the subsequent billing periods they'll make to you over the rest of the lifespan. So the impact on you is very significant. I think that brings the last of our questions. Jake, I just want to ask one last question before we break from you. Would you recommend this for other customers? Is there any downside to working with Engage Recovery, or has it been positive for you?
I mean, honestly, there's really not. I mean, there's a slight lift to get it integrated, but you touched on you're already getting most of the information anyways. I think we had to provide you, if a customer that was engaged or in invisible recovery called in and made a payment, that was one of the things. It was very, very minor. I joke, I'm still expecting to get a bill from you, Steve, but yeah, so there was no integration cost. There's no additional ongoing cost. It really, it's an awesome addition to the FlexPay suite.
Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate you and your partnership with us. And I really want to thank you for joining us today and be able to share your story. Again, anybody that's on the call, if you want to move forward and start getting the process initiated to add Engage Recovery to your installation, then please just go ahead and use the button on the desktop on your screen, or reach out to Nick or your team, and they will put you at the top of our queue to get you launched as quickly as possible. This is something that is absolutely possible to have live before the end of the year and moving and contributing to your reduction in churn and increase in revenue and profit. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of it. It's a wonderful new product. It's very effective. And as Jake says, there's really no downside. I also want to thank everybody for customers.
Oh, sorry, Steve. I didn't need it. Feel free to share my email if anyone wants to reach out and ask me a more detailed question. Feel free to share.
Awesome. Happy to do that. Thank you. Appreciate your generosity with your time, and I want to thank everybody for being FlexPay customers. We absolutely appreciate your support, and we look forward to working with you on Engage Recovery in the future. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.